Gridiron warriors put everything on the line. Just ask Dak Prescott, whose leg snapped in a nightmare scenario back in 2020.
Prescott breaks the tackle.
We're counting down the most bone-chilling moments of carnage the league has ever witnessed. Dak Prescott's ordeal in 2020 stands out as a truly gut-wrenching scene in modern football. In a split second, his ankle gave way, twisting violently into a compound fracture that actually tore through the skin. A hush fell over the crowd as Prescott sat there, clutching his leg, staring in absolute disbelief. Medical staff swarmed the field, and tears streamed down his face as the cart took him away. His season finished. He was rushed straight to surgery that very night to fix the break and treat the open wound. The sight shook everyone to their core. Jason Garrett, the Giants' coordinator and Dak's old coach, even crossed the field to console him. But the timing, that made it a tragedy. After 2 years of haggling over a long-term deal, Dak was stuck playing on a one-year franchise tag paying $31.4 million. He pushed for 4 years. The Cowboys demanded 5. And with neither budging, disaster struck, and his leg shattered before he could lock in that life-changing financial security. That moment sparked a firestorm about player safety and contracts. In a heartbeat, a superstar became a massive question mark. Yet, miraculously, Dak bounced back quickly. Now, brace yourself for something even worse. Cam Skattebo. His rookie year came to a screeching halt with one of the nastiest injuries of 2025. The Giants' running back was fighting the Eagles, trying to haul in a pass over the middle, when a defender crushed his right leg. As he hit the ground, his ankle torqued the wrong way, leaving his foot facing sideways. Everyone on that field knew it was bad instantly. Guys were literally looking away in horror, while others frantically waved for medics. Trainers sprinted out as Skattebo writhed on the grass in pure agony. It was an open dislocation bone protruding through the skin. On top of that, he snapped his fibula and tore his deltoid ligament, a catastrophic mix that forced immediate surgery that night in Philly. The crowd fell dead silent before erupting in support as he was carted off, leg stabilized in an air cast. Coach Brian Daboll called it absolutely heartbreaking, and teammates like rookie QB Jackson Dart couldn't hide their emotions. Dart, who just hit Skattebo for an 18-yard score earlier, said this is the ugliest side of the game. Skattebo spent days in the hospital post-op before heading back to Jersey to rehab. Medical pros think he might make the off-season program, but the road ahead is going to be a grind. Next up, the story of a player who almost lost his life right on the turf, DeMar Hamlin. On January 2nd, 2023, millions watched in terror as the Bills' safety dropped cold on live TV during a Monday night clash with the Bengals. He tackled T. Higgins, popped back up for a second, and then collapsed backward like a rag doll. Instantly, sheer panic took over. His heart had literally stopped beating. The 24-year-old went into cardiac arrest, caused by a freak occurrence known as commotio cordis. It happens when a blow to the chest strikes at the precise millisecond. The heart resets, sending it into a deadly rhythm. Medics worked feverishly with an AED and CPR for almost 10 agonizing minutes, just to get a pulse back. They sped him to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, life hanging in the balance, where he fought for 9 days. The league actually suspended the game, something you almost never see. As the world rallied for him, his small toy drive fundraiser skyrocketed from a $20,500 goal to over $9 million almost overnight. Everyone from coaches to fans called his recovery a straight-up miracle. By April 2023, only 4 months post-collapse, he was cleared to play again. It was an incredibly emotional return, but this next story involves an injury so grotesque, it still haunts the league. Alex Smith. On November 18, 2018, the Washington QB endured a true nightmare scenario. In the middle of a battle with the Texans, he took a sack and his leg just folded. Tibia, fibula, both shattered. The visual was enough to make you sick. Smith knew right away it was catastrophic. Surgeons raced him into the OR to fix the compound fracture. But the real horror show was just starting. A few days later, a flesh-eating monster known as necrotizing fasciitis began devouring his leg. The bacteria blitzed his system, sending Smith into sepsis, a full-blown biological meltdown that threatened to kill him. Doctors faced a grim ultimatum: amputate the leg immediately or risk losing the patient entirely. For months, Smith lived on the operating table, enduring 17 surgeries to scour away the rot and salvage his limb. He lay tethered to machines for weeks, pumping high-grade antibiotics while battling the crushing weight of hopelessness. Home didn't mean freedom. It meant a wheelchair and a bolted-on steel cage holding his shattered bones together. The physical agony screamed for a year, yet the psychological war was the real killer. Smith felt like a prisoner in his own body, guilt-ridden over pain meds and sinking into a black hole. He hit rock bottom, trapped by the toxic expectation that gridiron warriors don't cry. That pressure gagged him. But deep down, Smith still had that dog in him. He wouldn't fold. After 2 years of hellish rehab, he got the green light in 2020. Against all odds, he strapped on his helmet for Washington again. The very limb that nearly killed him was now driving him back into the NFL trenches. He snagged Comeback Player of the Year honors that season. Now, let's look at a player who almost left a limb on the turf: Zach Miller. On October 29, 2017, this Bears tight end experienced a nightmare scenario against the Saints that still haunts league history. Miller hauled in a standard touchdown pass, but gravity had other plans upon landing. His left knee snapped backward, defying physics. But the crowd didn't know the real terror unfolding inside the joint. This wasn't just a blown knee. It was life or death. The bone sheared his popliteal artery, severing the main fuel line to his lower leg. Blood flow hit zero instantly. Trainers scrambled to him as his screams echoed through the stadium. Once at the trauma center, the doctors dropped a bomb on him. "Fix this now, or the leg goes." Miller pleaded through the pain. "Just don't take my leg." Surgeons went to war for 9 hours, harvesting a vein from his good leg to bypass the damage and restart the pulse. He survived but lost over a month of his life to the hospital, including a terrifying stint in the ICU. 9 follow-up surgeries later, the goal wasn't football anymore. It was just saving enough knee to walk. By 2019, he hung up his cleats for good. Brace yourselves, because this next injury defies belief. Johnny Knox, December 18th, 2011, the day this Bears receiver faced a career-ending catastrophe that remains one of the most chilling sights in sports. Early against Seattle, Knox fumbled a quick slant and scrambled to dive on the loose ball. He never saw Anthony Hargrove coming. The collision folded Knox backward like a lawn chair, bending his spine into an impossible angle. Teammates and rivals alike looked away. Sickened, Knox lay paralyzed on the grass as medics sprinted out. They rushed him to a Chicago ER, confirming a shattered vertebra and massive nerve trauma. Surgeons operated the next morning, fusing his spine to stop him from being paralyzed for life. The verdict was terrifying: a few millimeters more, and he'd have been wheelchair-bound forever. The aftermath was hell. Knox endured weeks of torture, fighting, firing nerves and dead muscles just to twitch a toe. He had to teach his body to walk from scratch. Even after grueling therapy, standing too long felt like knives in his back. Come 2013, the writing was on the wall. The NFL dream was dead. The Bears cut ties, and Knox walked away from the game at only 26. On the flip side, this next superstar took a hit so nasty it threatened his entire livelihood. Nick Chubb, September 18th, 2023, the Browns' powerhouse back endured a stomach-churning trauma on Monday Night Football against Pittsburgh. Chubb was charging for the end zone when Minkah Fitzpatrick dove low to stop him. The impact snapped Chubb's knee backward so violently that the broadcast team refused to air the replay. Troy Aikman warned the audience, "We aren't showing that. It's absolute carnage." Chubb ripped off his helmet in sheer agony, clutching his knee while the stadium went silent. Trainers swarmed him, and after an agonizing wait, he was carted off to a respectful ovation from rival fan bases. The MRI was a disaster: torn MCL, meniscus, and medial capsule. Just like that, Nick Chubb's season was toast. Cleveland officials labeled the knee damage severe, but the context makes it truly chilling. We are talking about the exact joint Chubb shredded back in 2015 during his Georgia days, suffering a grisly dislocation, plus tearing multiple ligaments apart. Although the mishap in 2023 was brutal, surgeons managed to bypass a full rebuild, sparking optimism for a return. Shifting gears, let's look at a tragedy where a player never stood up again after one fateful hit. The story of Darryl Stingley. It unfolded on August 12, 1978, in a meaningless preseason matchup putting the Patriots against the Oakland Raiders, when 26-year-old receiver Stingley extended for a ball. Just as he launched himself to snag the spiral from Steve Grogan, Raiders enforcer Jack Tatum smashed into him helmet first at breakneck velocity. That violent collision instantly crushed Stingley's fourth and fifth cervical vertebrae, rendering him a quadriplegic before he hit the turf. The aftermath was gut-wrenching. A hush fell over the gridiron as medical staff sprinted toward the paralyzed athlete. Once the doctors confirmed the worst, citing a snapped neck and severed spinal cord. Stingley's days on the gridiron ended right there on the grass. He lived out his remaining years bound to a wheelchair, recovering only slight motion in his right arm. Yet, rather than letting rage consume him, Stingley displayed incredible grace. He transformed into a beacon of hope, touring medical centers and penning his memoir, Happy to Be Alive. By 1983, he launched a Chicago charity to support at-risk youth. Stingley passed away in 2007 at 55 years old, succumbing to issues tied to his condition, including pneumonia, spinal complications, and hardening of the arteries. Now consider the legend forced into early retirement by a freak accident. Bo Jackson. Back in the late 80s, Bo was not merely a celebrity. He was a mythological force, crushing it in both the NFL and Major League Baseball. Bo defined physical perfection. Then came January 1991, when a solitary snap erased what might have been the greatest sports legacy ever recorded. It occurred during a postseason clash, facing the Cincinnati Bengals. Bo was tearing down the sideline when linebacker Kevin Walker dragged him down at a weird angle. In a split second, Bo's hip popped out, cracking his pelvic socket. No scream followed. He had no clue regarding the severity. Sprawled on the field, he manually jammed his hip back into the socket, assuming it was merely a minor bruise. Internally, however, the destruction was total. The trauma severed critical blood vessels, starving the bone of oxygen. Weeks later, physicians diagnosed him with avascular necrosis, a nightmare condition where bone tissue actually dies from zero blood supply. That medical report instantly killed his football journey. Bo refused to surrender, opting for hip replacement surgery and staging a heroic comeback in baseball, swinging the bat for the Chicago White Sox and eventually the California Angels. Yet the supernatural spark had faded. He walked away at only 32. Turning the page, we find a player robbed of his dream by a scary collision. Byrd. It was November 29, 1992, when Jets defensive standout Dennis Byrd dug his cleats in for a standard down against the Kansas City Chiefs. At 26, with 27 sacks on his resume, Byrd hunted the quarterback one last time. As he lunged to take down Dave Krieg, fellow Jet Scott Mercereau charged from the other angle. In a blink, their helmets slammed together with sickening power. The blow pulverized Byrd's C5 vertebra, leaving him paralyzed from the neck down, save for a twitch in his right arm. As teammate Kyle Clifton arrived, Byrd whispered the haunting realization, "I do not think I can. Kyle, I think I am paralyzed." Ambulances raced him to Lenox Hill, where a 7-hour surgery stabilized his spine. Specialists warned he would probably stay in a wheelchair forever. Byrd rejected that destiny. After months of torturous physical therapy, he pulled off a miracle and regained his footing. His tear-jerking walk onto the Meadowlands turf the next season stands as a legendary moment in franchise lore. Sporting a halo brace, Byrd marched to the 50-yard line without help as honorary captain. Embodying pure grit, he never played again. But his legacy exploded. He penned the memoir Rise and Walk, touching millions through his faith. His jersey number 90 was officially retired back in 2012. Plus, the team now hands out the Dennis Byrd Award annually to their most inspiring athlete. Sadly, Byrd perished in a vehicle crash in 2016 at the age of 50. Moving forward, we reach the man famous for enduring perhaps the most graphic injury in league archives, Joe Theismann. On November 18, 1985, a massive Monday Night Football audience watched Washington battle the New York Giants. Instead of a game, they saw a moment of pure horror etched into sports history, the leg snap that finished Theismann's career. In the second quarter, Washington attempted a flea flicker, a gadget play designed to fool the defense, but Lawrence Taylor sniffed it out. As Theismann wound up, Taylor crashed the pocket, driving his knee directly into Theismann's lower leg. Both the tibia and fibula shattered on contact, warping the limb into a gruesome angle. The audible crack rang through the stadium, a sound Theismann later compared to muffled gunfire. Taylor instantly leaped to his feet in distress. Panic erupted from the sidelines as frantic waves signaled a disaster. Players froze, realizing instantly this wasn't a standard collision. Medics sprinted onto the turf, but the sight was stomach-turning. The bone had snapped clean through the leg and pierced the skin. It was brutally obvious. Theismann's time on the gridiron ended the second he hit the grass. They rushed him to George Washington University Hospital, where surgeons worked to salvage his shattered leg. Even after grueling months of rehab, he never played a single down of football again. That moment is cemented in history, remaining one of the most gruesome and frequently watched clips in sports lore. Yet, Joe calls it a hidden blessing. That tragedy pivoted his entire life, launching him into a massive career in broadcasting and business. Moving on, we have a lineman whose life-altering crash actually opened new doors he never expected to walk through. Mike Utley. It was November 17, 1991, and the Detroit Lions powerhouse offensive lineman faced a nightmare scenario against the Los Angeles Rams that still haunts the league's highlight reels. Utley was holding the line in the fourth quarter when Rams defender David Rocker leaped up to bat down a pass. Fate turned in a split second. Rocker came down hard on Mike's head, shattering his 5th, 6th, and 7th cervical vertebrae. The impact paralyzed him instantly. A hush fell over the stadium as the reality set in. But as they carted him off, he flashed that legendary thumbs up to the fans. He kept some movement in his hands, but his days in the trenches were officially done. Even before the whistle blew dead, Utley felt the terror. He knew deep down this wasn't just a stinger. Something was broken. The sensation vanished from my arms, my hands, my back, but my inner strength, that never left. The game took my mobility, but he refused to let it take his joy, leaning heavily on his faith, his family, and his squad. The Lions rallied hard around him, making sure he never sank into a dark place of self-pity. Post-football, Mike poured his energy into service, starting the Mike Utley Foundation to chase a cure, pushing for spinal research breakthroughs and coaching families through the brutal reality of living with paralysis. Looking back on his journey, Utley speaks only of gratitude. The game didn't take much from me at all. Football gave me a lifetime of gifts. Conversely, our next athlete came within inches of dying right on the turf. Reggie Brown, December 1997. This Detroit linebacker endured a scene straight out of a horror movie. A spinal blow so catastrophic it nearly stopped his heart permanently. Facing the Jets, Brown dove to stop running back Adrian Murrell. It happened in a blink. The crown of Brown's helmet collided violently with the back of a falling Jets lineman, Lamont Burns, jamming his spinal cord with lethal force. The trauma paralyzed his diaphragm immediately, and he began turning blue, lying lifeless on the cold artificial grass. The medical response was lightning fast. Teammate Antonio London screamed for medics, and right there on the field, trainers and Dr. Terry Locke started CPR to bring him back. They raced him to Pontiac General Hospital. He was out cold for nearly 45 minutes, and while initial checks looked okay, deeper scans showed his top 2 neck vertebrae had shifted, requiring urgent surgery to fuse the bones and stabilize his neck. The weeks following were a hellish climb. He had to teach his body everything again, from simply standing to gripping a toothbrush. As sensation slowly returned, taking just a couple of steps felt as exhausting as running a marathon. The NFL was out, but he won the bigger battle walking again and living a free life. Finally, let's talk about Rashad Johnson, who literally left a piece of himself on the field. 2013. Arizona Cardinals safety Rashad Johnson sustained one of the freakiest wounds in modern football memory. It went down during a punt return when Johnson shed a block and smashed into the pile at full velocity. His finger was obliterated, severed right above the knuckle in the chaos. Adrenaline masked the horror. His glove hid the carnage. It wasn't until he peeled the glove off on the sideline that he saw the tip was gone, with bone glaring back at him. Post-game, surgeons went to work, filing down the exposed bone to stop infection and stitching the wound. Reattachment wasn't even an option. Despite the gore, Johnson stayed incredibly chill about it, dropping that famous line, "I've still got 9 good ones," and that's plenty. He was back in pads soon after, proving that even losing a digit couldn't keep him from the game he loved. Drop a comment with your take on these warriors. Before you bounce, smash that like button and hit subscribe on NFL Rivals so you catch our next deep dive.